It all began in 1985 when the FBI in Buffalo, New York, began concentrating on Italian and Sicilian drug traffickers operating in and around Western New York. That investigation was codenamed Busico, an acronym for Buffalo Sicilian Connection. The operation kicked off after an informant was caught in a drug bust and told agents how the Mafia in Sicily wanted to set up an export-import company as a front for trafficking. Buffalo agents then set up a company called BSC Wholesale Inc., which they advertised as an export-import company. However, nothing became of it. But soon after, the agents began purchasing heroin and cocaine from dealers who claimed to have international connections. Over the course of time, the FBI in Newark, New Jersey, had jumped on board with the Buffalo investigation. That investigation became incorporated into one being conducted in Philadelphia, codenamed Iron Tower. The name derived from a food chain called Ferro Foods, owned by the Cherry Hill Gambinos, who were originally from Torretta, Sicily. Ferro in Italian is iron, and Torretta is Little Tower, hence the name Iron Tower, which became the main investigation. It became evident early on that despite the traffickers acting independently, they were all interconnected. Ultimately, the Iron Tower investigation expanded to involve 6 FBI field offices and 3 police agencies in Italy. Prosecuting judges, Giovanni Falcone and Ignacio De Francisi, had been investigating the Spatola, Gambino, and Inzerillo families from Palermo for drug trafficking. And essentially, after sharing notes with U.S. Attorney Rudolph Giuliani, it became apparent that all these investigations were intertwined. As a result, a meeting took place and was held at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. Also present at that meeting was the chief of the Italian National Police, Gianni Di Gennaro, who became the primary contact between Italy and the FBI. Years later, Giuliani would sing Di Gennaro praise. Whether it is organized crime or terrorism, Gianni Di Gennaro is the best example of someone who cooperated in a seamless way and created the mold for international cooperation. Italy's investigation went into full gear following an incident at the Puntarazzi airport in Palermo on May 24, 1986, when a woman named Vincenza Calli was detected by a drug-sniffing dog. Turns out she had 3 kilos of heroin in her underwear, after which she told the police it looked like talcum powder. And this was Calli's second trip. Her arrest led investigators to uncover the Sicilian Mafia using housewives from Torretta as drug couriers, who were all recruited by Salvatore Allegra and Francesco Rossiglione. Both were operating under the direction of Francesco Gambino, who had set up a drug distribution center in Torretta. Overseeing the entire operation was Rosario Spatola, who was also the connection between Palermo and the United States. Aside from Calli, there were other women used as couriers. They were all paid around $20,000 per trip. And besides the money, they were put up in week-long stays at luxury hotels in Manhattan. Prior to traveling, the women would heavily spray themselves with perfume to throw off the drug-sniffing dogs, which obviously didn't work out well for Vincenza Calli, who would receive a 10-year sentence. Salvatore Allegra was arrested after Calli was caught and began cooperating with authorities. Allegra not only filled in the blanks, but revealed the names and addresses of people involved in the United States. Italian authorities were able to make use of the United States Witness Protection Program for people like Allegra. Italian investigators identified the territories of Carini and Torretta as new trafficking channels to the United States. The Sicilians displayed unique craftiness in some instances by liquefying the heroin and pouring it into wine bottles that were headed to the United States. Italian investigators subpoenaed banking records, which revealed that significant U.S. dollars were entering the banks in all the towns surrounding Torretta. Many of the transaction forms were in the same handwriting and made out to the same names, some of which were fictitious. In addition, a great deal of safety deposit boxes were found filled with millions of U.S. dollars. The United States sent undercover agents to Sicily, more precisely, agents who spoke the dialect just like their targets. Inside 2 years, these undercover agents purchased 16 kilos of cocaine and 3 kilos of heroin. Apparently, there was a greater need for cocaine in Europe, and conversely, the people in the United States preferred heroin. Cocaine was being sent from South America to laboratories in north of Madrid, Spain, where it was processed and shipped to Italy, at which point it was exchanged for heroin that was then shipped to the United States. On a steady basis, heroin was arriving in Milan, Bologna, Florence, and Sicily. Investigators also uncovered an operational base that was being used in the Dominican Republic, where several fugitives belonging to Palermo Mafia families were taking refuge. One person in particular was Tommaso Inzerillo, who owned a shrimp farm in DR. During a meeting, a deal was made where a batch of Bolivian cocaine were exchanged for a few kilos of heroin. Italy also sent 8 members of their police force to travel to New York and monitor the investigation every 6 months. 3 of the key players in the United States was from the Gambino family Sicilian faction, John and Joe Gambino and Francesco Inzerillo. The Gambino brothers owned Cafe Giardino on 18th Avenue in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, which also acted as their headquarters, and where the FBI placed bugs throughout the cafe, including the chairs. In New York, the FBI used court-authorized wiretaps, as well as Philadelphia and Italy, and captured thousands of hours of incriminating conversations. They also bugged cars and the terraces and bathrooms of hotels in New York, Buffalo, and Philadelphia. And just like the Pizza Connection did years earlier, pizzerias served as fronts for the interstate trafficking. Undercover agents mingled with dozens of traffickers, winning over the trust of these targets and managing to purchase drugs as well. They traced cocaine and heroin from Miami to Philadelphia and from Buffalo to New York. A major target, Salvatore Inzerillo, was tracked to Woodbridge, Virginia, where he owned and ran a pizzeria named Leo's, which was a known gathering place for members of organized crime, including the Gambino brothers, who on phone taps referred to Inzerillo as Joe. The FBI bugged Inzerillo's Cadillac, where he spoke freely about drug deals. It became known to the Gambino brothers that Inzerillo was making deals independently from them, which caused a lot of friction. Inzerillo's the cousin of the other Salvatore Inzerillo, who was the Palermo boss killed by the Coglianesi in 1981. Please remember to like this video if you haven't already. And for anyone who wants to show their appreciation, you could do so by the Super Thanks icon down below or the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. Italian investigators not only wanted Inzerillo back in Sicily to face trafficking charges, but more importantly, to charge him with murder. On August 6, 1980, on the orders of Palermo boss Salvatore Inzerillo, Palermo District Attorney Gaetano Costa was shot and killed by a 2-man hit team on a motorcycle. Salvatore Inzerillo, the cousin, was identified as being near Costa's house on the night he was killed. Consequently, Inzerillo fled Sicily and remained a fugitive. At the time of Operation Iron Tower, Sicily had requested the extradition of 8 Sicilians living in the United States, including Inzerillo. In the early morning hours of December 1st, 1988, FBI agents, with the assistance of local law enforcement, executed arrest and search warrants throughout the United States. Simultaneous arrests transpired in Italy and Sicily. Arrests were made in Buffalo, Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, Miami, Baltimore, San Francisco, and Illinois, and in 9 locations in Italy. In total, 75 people were arrested in the United States and 133 in Italy. Those not arrested were considered fugitives. Salvatore Inzerillo, just prior to the arrest, was planning to flee the United States. Out of the 2 Gambino brothers, only Joe Gambino was arrested. The evidence against John Gambino was considered too weak to arrest him, but he was later charged in 1990 on a superseding indictment. On the day of the arrest, the Gambino brothers were in their cafe and the place was packed. A singer had just finished singing O Solo Mio when an agent took the microphone and announced to the crowd, "Ladies and gentlemen, this was your last dance." And the FBI agents commenced their raid.